The text message glared at me from my phone screen. Dad doesn't want to see me anymore. My heart sank as I read those words from my 14-year-old stepdaughter, a girl I hadn't even known existed 3 months ago. I'm Jasmine, and this is how I discovered my perfect marriage was built on lies. It started with Edwin's strange behavior last summer. My usually attentive husband began disappearing for hours, claiming work emergencies. His phone would buzz constantly, and he'd step out of rooms to take calls. When I asked questions, he'd brush them off with that charming smile that made me fall in love with him 5 years ago. Then came the night I heard him arguing in his home office. "Nina, you can't just spring this on me." His voice carried through the door. 14 years of silence, and now you want me involved? I pressed my ear against the wood, my stomach churning. "She's my daughter too," he hissed. "But you can't expect me to—" Fine, I'll meet her." The door flew open and I stumbled backward. Edwin's face went pale. "How much did you hear?" he asked, running his fingers through his hair, his tell when he's nervous. "Enough," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Who's Nina? And who's this daughter?" He slumped onto our leather couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "I should have told you years ago, before we got married." "Told me what, Edwin?" "I have a daughter, from a relationship before we met. Her name is Jordan." The room started spinning. "A daughter? How old?" 14. I did the math quickly. "You were 24 when she was born, and you never told me?" "Nina and it was complicated. She didn't want me involved at first. Then when she reached out years later, I was already with you, and I couldn't find the right time." "There's never a right time to tell your wife you've been hiding a child." I grabbed my keys. "I need air." "Where are you going?" "To Taylor's. Don't follow me." I drove to my best friend's house on autopilot, tears blurring my vision. Taylor opened her door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. "He has a teenage daughter," I sobbed into her shoulder, "a whole other life I knew nothing about." "That bastard," Taylor muttered, pouring me a glass of wine. "What are you going to do?" "What can I do? There's an innocent girl involved now." I showed her the text message that had started it all. "He's already screwing it up." "Have you met her?" "No, but apparently Edwin promised to take her to dinner tonight and canceled last minute. Again." My phone buzzed with another message from Jordan. "Mom says I shouldn't bother trying anymore." "You should meet her," Taylor said, reading over my shoulder. "Someone needs to show that girl not all adults will let her down." I stared at my phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What if she hates me? I'm the replacement wife who didn't even know she existed. Then she hates you. But at least you tried. Taking a deep breath, I typed, "Hi, Jordan. This is Jasmine, Edwin's wife. I just learned about you, and I'm so sorry about tonight. Would you like to meet for ice cream tomorrow? Just us?" The response came quickly. "Why do you care? You're not my mom." "No, I'm not, but I'd like to know you if you'll let me." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. "Okay, but I picked the place." I showed Taylor the exchange, my hands shaking. "What am I getting myself into?" "The right thing," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "Someone needs to step up for this kid, and it clearly won't be Edwin." When I returned home that night, Edwin was waiting up. "I can explain everything," he started. I held up my hand. "Save it, I'm meeting Jordan tomorrow." "What? No, let me handle this. Like you handled tonight? She's your daughter, Edwin, your flesh and blood, and you're treating her like an inconvenience." His face hardened. "You don't understand the situation." "No, I don't, because you lied to me for our entire relationship." I headed for the guest room, but I'm going to understand it, with or without your help. As I lay in bed that night, Jordan's text messages burned in my mind. I had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. My life would never be the same. Jordan chose a small cafe downtown, and I spotted her immediately. She had Edwin's eyes. She sat hunched over her phone, dark hair falling like a curtain around her face, radiating that particular brand of teenage defensiveness I remembered from my own youth. "Jordan?" I approached slowly, like you would a spooked animal. "I'm Jasmine." She looked up, eyes scanning me critically. "You're prettier than I thought you'd be." I laughed, caught off guard by her bluntness. "Thanks, I think. Is it okay if I sit?" She shrugged. which I took as teenage speak for yes. So, I said, settling into the chair across from her, tell me about yourself. What's there to tell? I'm the secret kid your husband didn't want you to know about. Her words were sharp, but I caught the tremor in her voice. Hey, I leaned forward. You're not secret anymore, and I'm here because I want to be. The waitress arrived, saving us from the awkward silence. Jordan ordered a chocolate milkshake, and I got coffee. Mom says he used to visit sometimes, Jordan said suddenly, stirring her shake. When I was really little. Then he just stopped. My heart clenched. Would you like to tell me about your mom? She works a lot, 2 jobs. Jordan's voice turned defensive. She's doing her best. I'd like to meet her sometime, I said carefully. If that's okay with both of you. Jordan's head snapped up. Why? Because this situation affects all of us, and maybe we could handle it better together. She studied me for a long moment. Dad won't like that. Your dad doesn't get to dictate everything anymore. A ghost of a smile crossed her face, but then her phone buzzed. Her expression fell as she read the message. Let me guess. Edwin canceling again? She nodded, blinking rapidly. He promised to take me shopping this weekend, but apparently something came up at work. Give me your mom's number, I said, pulling out my phone. I'd like to talk to her. Jordan hesitated, then recited the number. I typed out a quick message. Hi, Nina, this is Jasmine, Edwin's wife. I'm with Jordan right now. Could we meet to talk? The response came quickly. My place, 7 p.m. tonight. I'll text you the address. Your mom agreed to meet, I told Jordan. Would you be okay with that? She shrugged again, but this time I caught a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Does he ever talk about me? The question gutted me. Honey, I didn't know about you until yesterday, but that's his failure, not yours. Mom says he's good at failing. She attempted a laugh, but it came out more like a sob. Without thinking, I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. To my surprise, she didn't pull away. That evening, I pulled up to a modest apartment complex. Nina opened the door before I could knock, a petite woman with Jordan's dark hair and tired eyes. So you're the wife, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Coffee? Please. The apartment was small but spotless, covered in Jordan's artwork and school certificates. Nina handed me a mug and sat across from me at her kitchen table. Why are you really here, Jasmine? Because there's a 14-year-old girl who deserves better than what she's getting. Nina's shoulders sagged. I've tried everything. Begging, threatening legal action, guilt trips. Nothing makes him step up. Tell me everything, I said, from the beginning. So she did. About meeting Edwin in college, their brief relationship, finding out she was pregnant. How he'd promised to co-parent but gradually disappeared. How he'd send checks sometimes, but they became increasingly sporadic. The worst part? Nina's voice cracked. He keeps getting Jordan's hopes up, makes promises, then breaks them. I've told him to either commit or stay away, but he won't do either. That ends now, I said, my voice firm. I'm done watching him hurt her. Nina studied me carefully. Why do you care so much? You just found out about all this. Because someone has to, and because every time Jordan looks at me with those hurt eyes, I see myself at 14, wondering why I wasn't enough for someone to stick around. Nina nodded slowly. So what do you suggest? I think it's time Edwin faces consequences for his actions, real ones, and I have an idea, but I'll need your help. I'm listening. As I outlined my plan, I saw something spark in Nina's eyes, hope, maybe, or vindication. Either way, I knew I'd found an ally in this mess. Edwin had no idea what was coming. He did what? I gripped my coffee mug tighter as Nina showed me the old text messages on her phone. Told Jordan he was on a business trip in Seattle that weekend, Nina said, scrolling through the messages. Meanwhile, we were at the hospital because she broke her arm and I couldn't reach him. That was 2 months after our honeymoon in Maui, I said, feeling sick. He wasn't in Seattle. We were hosting a dinner party at our house. Nina's bitter laugh echoed through her kitchen. Classic Edwin, he's got excuses lined up like dominoes. My phone buzzed. Edwin asking where I was. I ignored it. Look at this one. Nina pulled up another message. Last Christmas, he promised Jordan a laptop for her schoolwork. Said he'd bring it by on New Year's Day. Let me guess. Never showed? Worse. Showed up 3 weeks later with some cheap tablet, acting like he was father of the year. Nina's hands shook slightly. Jordan pretended to be thrilled, but I heard her crying that night. I stood up abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. I need to confront him. Be careful, Nina warned. When backed into a corner, Edwin gets creative with his lies. He'll try to turn this around on us. Let him try. I pulled out my own phone, scrolling through photos. See this? Our vacation to Mexico last spring? He told you he couldn't afford child support that month because business was slow. Nina's eyes narrowed at the image of Edwin on a yacht, champagne in hand. Son of a... A key turned in the lock and Jordan walked in, stopping short when she saw us together. Hey, honey, Nina said quickly. How was study group? Fine. Jordan's eyes darted between us. What's going on? I shared a look with Nina before speaking. We're trying to understand some things about your dad's behavior. You mean why he's a liar? Jordan dropped her backpack with a thud. I already know that part. Jordan, Nina started, but her daughter cut her off. No, Mom, I'm not stupid. I see his Instagram posts when he says he's too busy to see me. I know he went to Elia's wedding even though he told me he was sick that weekend. I felt my anger rising. He told you he was sick during Elia's wedding? Yeah, but I saw the photos online. He looked pretty healthy doing the chicken dance. I pulled out my phone again, dialing Edwin's number. He answered on the first ring. Jasmine, where are you? I've been worried. Save it. I cut him off. I'm with Nina and Jordan. We need to talk. Now. You're what? His voice turned cold. Who gave you the right to lie to your daughter about being sick during your sister's wedding? Silence. Come to Nina's. Now. Or I swear to God, Edwin, I'm calling Alea next and telling her everything. Don't you dare. 20 minutes. I hung up. Jordan stared at me, wide-eyed. He's actually coming? He better. I turned to Nina. Is that okay, having him here? She nodded grimly. It's time. 19 minutes later, Edwin's car pulled up. He stormed into the apartment like he owned it. What kind of ambush is this? He demanded. Sit down, I said quietly. I will not. Sit down. Something in my voice made him comply. Now, I continued, explain to your daughter why you lied about being sick during Alea's wedding. I didn't. That's not. He looked at Jordan, who was fighting back tears. Princess, you have to understand. Don't call me that, she whispered. You lost that right. Show him the hospital messages, I told Nina. As Nina pulled up the texts, I watched Edwin's face. I saw the moment he realized he couldn't talk his way out of this one. I was trying to protect everyone, he attempted. Protect who? I asked. Your image? Your comfort? Certainly not your daughter. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure of what? Nina exploded. Being a decent human being, showing up for your child. God forbid you have to sacrifice a dinner party to be there when your daughter breaks her arm. Edwin stood up. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't, I agreed. But if you walk out that door, I'm calling Aaliyah, then your parents, then every friend who thinks you're such a stand-up guy. Your choice. He sank back into the chair, deflated. Dad, Jordan's voice was barely audible. Why don't you want me? The question hung in the air like smoke, choking us all. Edwin opened his mouth, closed it, then stood up again. This time, he walked out. I moved to follow him, but Nina caught my arm. Let him go. We've seen everything we needed to see. Jordan's sob broke through the silence, and I wrapped my arms around her as she cried. I've got you, I whispered. We've got you. Over her head, I met Nina's eyes. The time for gentle confrontation was over. Edwin wanted to play games? Fine. Game on. He's been telling everyone you're having a mental breakdown, Taylor said, sliding into our usual booth at the diner. Aaliyah called me this morning, worried sick about you. I stirred my coffee, unsurprised. Of course he has. Can't have people knowing the truth. Speaking of truth, Taylor pulled out her phone. Look what I found on his sister's Facebook from 3 years ago. The photo showed Edwin at a father-daughter dance with his niece. The caption read, Best uncle ever, always there for his favorite girl. That was the weekend Jordan had her piano recital, I said. He told Nina he was out of town for work. Want me to show Alea? Not yet. I leaned forward. First, we need to gather everything. Every lie, every missed event, every broken promise. Build a case so strong he can't wiggle out of it. The bell above the diner door chimed, and Alea herself walked in. My heart jumped. I hadn't seen Edwin's sister since everything started. Jasmine? She spotted us and hurried over. Thank God. Edwin said you weren't taking his calls, that you were acting erratic. Sit down, Alea, I said quietly. There's something you need to know about your brother. Her face paled as I told her everything, showing her the evidence Nina had collected over the years. When I finished, she sat in stunned silence. I have a niece, she finally whispered. All this time? A niece your brother has been systematically disappointing for 14 years, Taylor added. That father-daughter dance, Alea said slowly. He insisted on taking my Emma because he said he never had a daughter of his own. He looked me in the eye and... She grabbed her purse and stood up. I need to see her. Alea, wait. No, you don't understand. Every Christmas, every birthday, she should have been there, with family, with me. Her voice cracked. Take me to her, please. I texted Nina, who agreed to meet us at her apartment. When we arrived, Jordan was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up, confused at the stranger in tears staring at her. Jordan, I said gently, this is your Aunt Alea. Oh my God, Alea breathed. You look just like our mom. Jordan stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. Alea stepped forward, then stopped herself. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so sorry I didn't know, that I wasn't there. It's not your fault, Jordan mumbled. No, but I'm going to make it right. Alea turned to Nina. Every family gathering from now on, you both are invited. No more secrets, no more exclusion. Nina's eyes welled up. That would mean a lot to Jordan. My phone buzzed. Edwin calling again. This time I answered and put it on speaker. Jasmine, this has gone too far, he started. You need to come home so we can... She's with me, Edwin, Alea cut in, at Nina's apartment, with my niece. Silence. Your niece, she continued, voice shaking. The one you've been hiding from us for 14 years. The one you abandoned to take Emma to father-daughter dances. Alea, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a coward. She looked at Jordan, who was watching with wide eyes. But I'm not, and I'm done keeping your secrets. She hung up before he could respond. Within minutes, his text messages started flooding in. Don't do this. We can talk about this. You're destroying our family. Alea read them aloud, laughing bitterly. He destroyed it himself, lie by lie. What happens now? Jordan asked quietly. Now, I said, we show everyone exactly who your father is. No more hiding, no more excuses. He'll try to stop us, Nina warned. Let him try. Alea pulled out her phone. I'm calling Mom and Dad right now. They deserve to know they have another grandchild. As Alea stepped into the hallway to make the call, Taylor squeezed my hand. You okay? I nodded, watching Jordan show Nina her homework. For the first time in weeks, I actually am. Everything's finally clear. What do you mean? I mean I'm done being married to a man who could do this to his own child. I twisted my wedding ring off my finger. I'm done being complicit in his lies. Nina looked up, meeting my eyes. She nodded slightly, understanding passing between us. Edwin thought he was losing control of his narrative. He had no idea what was coming next. The truth was about to become very, very public. Edwin's parents arrived at Nina's apartment like a storm, his mother Barbara bursting through the door with tears streaming down her face. Where is she? Where's my granddaughter? Jordan stood frozen in the kitchen doorway as Barbara rushed toward her, enveloping her in a hug. Edwin's father Robert stood back, his face ashen. You look just like Edwin's grandmother, Barbara sobbed. All this time, all these years. Mom, give her some space, Alea said gently, pulling her mother back. This is overwhelming for everyone. Robert finally spoke, his voice rough. Nina, we had no idea. The things Edwin told us about you. What did he tell you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. That you didn't want us involved, Barbara said, wiping her eyes. that you threatened legal action if he told anyone about Jordan. Nina's laugh was hollow. Of course he did. Anything to make himself look like the victim. I have proof, I said, pulling out my phone. Every message, every broken promise, every lie. Would you like to see? They did. For the next hour, we showed them everything. The missed birthdays, the canceled plans, the elaborate excuses. With each revelation, Robert's face grew darker. The cruise we took last summer, Barbara whispered. He said he couldn't afford child support because business was slow, but he paid for our entire family to... That's not even the worst part, Alea cut in. Tell them about the father-daughter dance, Jasmine. By the time we finished, Robert was pacing the small living room. Where is he? Where's my son? Probably at our house, I said. Hiding. Not anymore. Robert pulled out his phone. Edwin, family emergency. Nina's apartment, now. No excuses. 20 minutes later, Edwin walked in, stopping short at the sight of his entire family. What is this? He demanded. This, Robert's voice was deadly quiet, is the moment you face what you've done. Dad, whatever they told you. Sit down. Robert pointed to the empty chair. And for once in your life, tell the truth. Edwin sat, his eyes darting around the room. I can explain everything. Explain what? Barbara's voice shook. How you kept our granddaughter from us? How you chose vacations over child support? Or how about, Alea added, how you took Emma to that dance instead of attending Jordan's recital? I was trying to protect everyone, Edwin started. Protect us from what? Jordan's voice cut through the room. She stood straighter, braver than I'd ever seen her. From loving me? Princess, I told you not to call me that. She stepped forward. You know what hurts the most? Not the broken promises or the lies. It's that you had love to give. You just chose not to give it to me. The room fell silent. Edwin's face crumpled. I wasn't ready, he whispered. I wasn't ready to be a father. But you were ready to be an uncle? Alea scoffed. Ready to play dad to my daughter while ignoring your own? That was different. How? Nina demanded. How was it different? Because she wasn't supposed to happen, Edwin shouted, then immediately went pale as he realized what he'd said. Jordan's intake of breath was audible. Barbara covered her mouth in horror. Get out, I said quietly. Jasmine, get out. I stood up. Get out of this apartment, get out of my life, and get out of Jordan's life unless you're ready to be the father she deserves. You can't, she can, Robert cut in. And so can we. You're not welcome at family gatherings until you make this right, really right. Edwin looked around the room, searching for an ally and finding none. Finally, he stood up. This isn't over, he said. You're right, I replied. Divorce papers will be ready Monday. He slammed the door on his way out. As soon as he was gone, Jordan collapsed into Nina's arms, sobbing. I'm so sorry, baby, Nina whispered, stroking her hair. Barbara moved to embrace them both. We're here now. We're not going anywhere. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Robert. Thank you, he said gruffly, for bringing this family together, even as it falls apart. It's not falling apart, Alea said. It's rebuilding, the right way this time. Looking around the room, at Nina comforting Jordan, at Barbara making plans for family dinners, at Robert wiping away tears, I realized Alea was right. Sometimes things have to break completely before they can be fixed properly. And Edwin? He'd just broken everything beyond his ability to manipulate it back together. The truth was out. All of it. And there was no going back. The divorce papers sat on Edwin's desk like a bomb waiting to detonate. He stared at them, then at me, his face cycling through shock, anger, and finally, desperation. You're really doing this? He asked. Sign them. We can work this out, he pleaded. Couples therapy, family counseling, whatever you want. It's not about what I want anymore. I pushed the papers closer. It's about what Jordan needs. Jordan? He laughed bitterly. The girls turned my whole family against me. My own parents won't take my calls. You did that yourself. His office door opened, and Alea walked in without knocking. Is he still making excuses? What are you doing here? Edwin stood up. This is between me and my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected. And Alea's here as a witness, along with some other people. On cue, Nina walked in with Jordan. Behind them came Robert and Barbara, then Taylor. Edwin's face went pale. What is this? An intervention? Actually, yes. Alea perched on his desk. See, big brother, we've been talking about all the lies, all the manipulation, and we think it's time you heard what that's done to everyone in this room. I don't have to listen to this. Yes, you do, Robert's voice boomed. Sit down, son. Edwin sat. Barbara went first, pulling out a photo album. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family vacation, there's a hole in these photos where Jordan should have been. You stole those memories from us. Mom, I'm not finished. She turned to Jordan. I missed 14 years of your life. I can never get those back. Alea stepped forward. Remember Emma's dance recital last spring, when you played Proud Uncle? That same day, Jordan was competing in a debate tournament. She won first place, but you weren't there to see it. How was I supposed to be in two places? You weren't, Nina cut in. You knew about Jordan's tournament months in advance. You chose the recital because it was easier, because Emma didn't come with complications and guilt. Edwin's eyes darted around the room, looking for escape. My turn, Taylor said. Remember telling me Jordan's mom was unstable? That she was keeping you from your daughter? I believed you. I comforted you. Meanwhile, Nina was working 2 jobs to support the child you abandoned. I sent money. Sometimes, Nina corrected, when it was convenient, when it didn't interfere with your vacations or your image. Finally, Jordan stepped forward. My heart ached at how adult she looked in that moment. You know what I tell people when they ask about my dad? She said quietly. I tell them I don't have one, because that hurts less than explaining that my father chooses not to be in my life. Jordan, please. I used to make up stories, she continued. Tell my friends you were a secret agent or working overseas. Anything was better than the truth, that you just didn't want me. Edwin's shoulders slumped. That's not true. Then prove it, I said, sliding the divorce papers closer. Sign these, and then prove it. Be a real father. No more lies, no more excuses. What are you saying? I'm saying sign the papers, then make a choice. Either be fully present in Jordan's life, reliable, honest, committed, or stay away completely. She deserves better than your half-hearted attempts. Edwin picked up the pen, his hand shaking. If you sign, Alea added, we'll help you rebuild these relationships. But if you keep lying, keep manipulating, you'll lose us all. He looked around the room one last time, perhaps hoping someone would save him from this moment. No one did. The scratch of pen on paper was deafening. Now what? He asked, voice small. Now, Robert said, you start proving to your daughter that she matters, that she's not a mistake or an obligation, but a gift you've been taking for granted. And if you fail again, Barbara added, if you hurt her one more time, you'll answer to all of us. Edwin nodded slowly, finally looking defeated. Jordan, he said softly, I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but you're right, she cut him off. It's not enough, but it's a start. As everyone filed out of the office, I lingered behind. Edwin looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw real remorse in his eyes. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said simply, but you can choose to do better. For her sake, I hope you do. I walked out, leaving him alone with his choices and their consequences. In the hallway, Jordan waited with Nina. You okay? I asked her. She nodded, then surprised me with a hug. Thank you, she whispered, for making him face it. Sometimes I realized the biggest act of love is forcing someone to face their failures, and sometimes the greatest revenge is simply telling the truth. 3 months after the intervention, I sat in the bleachers watching Jordan's volleyball game. Nina was on one side of me, Barbara on the other. Alea sat behind us with Emma, who had become inseparable from her newfound cousin. He's late, Nina muttered, checking her phone. Again. Edwin had promised to be here, had sworn this time would be different. The game started. Jordan kept glancing at the gym entrance between serves. Did he at least text? Barbara asked. Nothing, I replied. Halfway through the first set, the gym door opened. Edwin walked in, trying to be subtle and failing miserably. Jordan missed her serve. her eyes locked on her father. 20 minutes late, Alea hissed. Better than last time, I guess. Edwin made his way to our section, but before he could sit down, Nina stood up. Outside, she said. Now. They walked out, leaving the rest of us to watch Jordan try to focus on her game. Through the gym windows, we could see Nina gesturing angrily. Should someone... Barbara started. No, I cut in. Nina needs this. 5 minutes later, they returned. Edwin's face was red, and Nina looked satisfied. What did you say to him? I whispered as she sat back down. That if he can't show up on time, don't show up at all. Jordan needs consistency, not half-hearted efforts. The game continued. Jordan's team won the first set, largely thanks to her serves. During the break, she jogged over to us. You came, she said to Edwin, her voice carefully neutral. I promised I would. He cleared his throat. You're playing really well. I'm team captain now. Since when? Since last month, Barbara cut in. When she led them to regionals. We were all there. Remember the video I sent you? Edwin shifted uncomfortably. Right. Sorry, I've been busy with work. Don't, Jordan interrupted. Just don't make excuses. Either be here or don't. She jogged back to her team, leaving Edwin looking like he'd been slapped. She's right, you know, Alea said quietly. The excuses only make it worse. The second set started. This time, Edwin watched intently, even cheering when Jordan scored. But during a timeout, his phone rang. He stepped away to answer it. Here we go, Nina muttered. Edwin returned, already gathering his coat. There's an emergency at work. No, I stood up, blocking his path. You're not doing this to her again. Jasmine, I have to... Look at her. I pointed to Jordan, who was watching us with that all-too-familiar look of disappointment. Really look at her. Is your emergency worth breaking her heart again? He hesitated, then sat back down. I'll handle it later. Good choice, Barbara said firmly. Jordan's team won the match. As people started filing out of the gym, she approached us again, still in her uniform. We're going for pizza to celebrate, she said. Would you like to come, Dad? The invitation hung in the air. Everyone held their breath. Edwin glanced at his phone, then put it away. I'd love to. At the pizza place, I watched Edwin actually try for the first time. He asked Jordan about school, about volleyball, about her friends. She answered cautiously at first, then with growing animation. Remember that science project I told you about? She asked him. The one with the solar system. I don't think you mentioned it. Oh, her face fell slightly. Right, that was last month. I got an A. Tell him about the presentation, Emma piped up. The one where you made the planets light up. As Jordan explained her project, Edwin's phone buzzed repeatedly. He ignored it. I'd like to see it, he said when she finished. The project, if you still have it. Really? Her whole face lit up. It's at Mom's. I could show you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday, Nina reminded her. You have debate club. After that, Jordan said quickly, maybe Dad could come watch the debate first? Everyone turned to Edwin. This was the moment, another promise to either keep or break. He nodded slowly. What time? 9 a.m., Jordan said. You have to be on time. It's important. I'll be there at 8:30, he said. Front row. As we left the restaurant, I overheard Jordan talking to Nina. Do you think he'll really come? I don't know, honey, but he's trying. Yeah, Jordan said softly. I guess he is. I watched them drive away, thinking about karma and second chances. Edwin had a long way to go to earn back trust, but tonight was a start. Tomorrow would tell if he meant it. The morning of the debate competition, I arrived at the school auditorium at 8:15. Nina and Jordan were already there, setting up note cards at their assigned podium. Has he called? I asked Nina. She shook her head. Nothing. 8:25. Jordan kept glancing at the entrance. 8:30. Barbara and Robert arrived, followed by Alea and Emma. 8:40. The debate coach started gathering the participants. He's not coming, is he? Jordan's voice cracked. Before anyone could respond, the auditorium doors burst open. Edwin rushed in, slightly out of breath but wearing a suit and tie. I'm here, he called out. I made it. You're late, Jordan said, but she was smiling. Traffic was terrible, but I left early just in case. He held up a small gift bag. And I brought something. Jordan opened the bag and pulled out a silver necklace with a star pendant. Your grandmother, my mom, wore this during her first debate competition, Edwin explained. She gave it to Alea, who gave it to Emma. Now it's yours. Barbara gasped softly. Alea squeezed Emma's hand. Really? Jordan touched the pendant carefully. Really? Edwin took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. Break a leg up there, kiddo. The debate began. Jordan was brilliant, her arguments clear and passionate. Every time she scored a point, Edwin cheered louder than anyone. During a break, Nina leaned over to me. He's different today. Let's hope it lasts. The final round came down to Jordan's team versus the defending champions. When Jordan delivered her closing argument, Edwin was on the edge of his seat. The judges have reached a decision, the moderator announced. Jordan's team won. The auditorium erupted in cheers. Edwin jumped up shouting, "That's my daughter!" As medals were being awarded, Edwin's phone rang. He glanced at it, then declined the call. Work? I asked. They'll survive without me. He smiled. This is more important. Afterward, we gathered in the lobby. Jordan clutched her medal, still wearing the star necklace. Dad, she said suddenly, remember my science project? The one with the planets? Of course. You were going to show it to me today. Well, she glanced at Nina, who nodded encouragingly. I was thinking maybe instead we could get lunch, all of us. I'd love that, Edwin said. But first, he turned to face everyone. I owe you all an apology, a real one. The lobby fell silent. I've been selfish, manipulative, and cowardly, he continued. I hurt everyone in this room, especially you, Jordan. I can't change the past 14 years, but I can promise to do better starting now. Actions speak louder than words, Nina reminded him. I know. He pulled out his phone and opened his calendar. That's why I've already blocked out every Thursday evening for Jordan's volleyball games, and every other Saturday for whatever she wants to do. No work calls, no emergencies, no excuses. Jordan's eyes widened. Really? Really. He showed her the calendar. And I've set up a proper college fund, one that can't be touched for anything else. Nina, I'll email you the details. What about work? Barbara asked. Your clients? We'll have to understand that my daughter comes first. He looked at Jordan. If they don't, I'll find new clients. I watched Jordan's face carefully, seeing hope battle with caution. You mean it? Test me, Edwin said. I'll prove it. She hugged him then, quick but real. When she pulled back, both had tears in their eyes. Lunch? She asked. Lead the way. As everyone headed to their cars, I hung back with Nina. Think he'll stick to it? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. But today was different. He chose her first, without hesitation. Thanks to you, she said, for forcing him to face everything. We all did it together. Walking to my car, I thought about karma and consequences, about how sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Edwin had lost his marriage and his comfortable lies, but he might have gained something more valuable, a real relationship with his daughter. And Jordan? She got what she always deserved, a father who finally showed up. As for me, I got the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes doing the right thing is the sweetest revenge of all. The star necklace caught the sunlight as Jordan walked ahead, laughing at something Emma said. It sparkled like a new beginning. Sometimes that's all anyone needs, a chance to start over, to do better, to be better. And sometimes that's enough.